and you're watching Melissa Explains It All. So today we're talking about my 12 things I kind of wish I knew while I was pregnant and going through pregnancy, labor, delivery, and recovery. I know that when I was pregnant, I really loved hearing the stories of a lot of the women in my life, whether they were co-workers or family members, etc., just to kind of help me prepare for what lay ahead for me. So I thought it would be such a great idea to post a video like this on YouTube for you to benefit from. So let's get started. I have the notes here on my phone, and here we go. So it's in no particular order. I just kind of went through the earliest things I remember to the latest. And something that I would like to say is that every person's pregnancy is completely different. That's one of the biggest things that I saw in all the books that I read. It's always important to remember that everyone's story is different and unique, and even my next pregnancy will be different than my first one, as well as my labor and delivery story. So, take this information with a grain of salt, as they say. Again, this is the stuff that nobody talks about, or the things that I felt like, man, no one really talks about this kind of stuff. Probably because maybe some of it is embarrassing, or not everyone goes through the same thing. So the first thing that I have here on my list were changes in body odor. Started to use liners to help with that and change them out. And I also started using feminine body wash, and that really did help sort of restore the pH and help clear up some of the scents that were happening. Another thing that I felt was important for me was trying to maintain somewhat of an active, healthy lifestyle. Before I got pregnant, I was very active. I would work out pretty much every day. And in my first trimester, I was incredibly exhausted, more tired than I had ever felt before in my life. So it was very difficult, pretty much impossible to really stay active and continue exercising, nevertheless be in the kitchen and cook. So one of the biggest things I would say is it's so important to have accountability and support from your spouse. In my case, my husband. Moving forward in my second pregnancy, something that I really want to have is his support in making sure that he goes on a walk with me every day and really helps me in preparing healthy meals that I can just heat up when I get home. And then that way I won't feel the temptation to give into some of the cravings that I had. I mean, I pretty much ate pizza almost every single day when I was pregnant. And I don't think it's bad to give into your cravings, but I don't think it's good, necessarily healthy what I did, which was eat a whole lot of pizza. I gained 50 pounds in my pregnancy, and my body has sort of suffered because of that, health-wise. And I'll get into that in more detail in just a minute. The next thing was, in the second trimester, I noticed that kind of like what you'll read and what you'll hear is you'll get re-energized. You have like this sudden burst of energy, and that's the perfect time to just get the house ready, get the baby room ready if you're gonna have one. Pack your hospital bag. I know that it's really early, but in the third trimester, you might be so exhausted and tired and in pain that you might not have the time. So again, these are my mental notes for the next pregnancy. I would totally make an effort to pack my hospital bag in my second trimester when I have more energy. And also try to make sure that if for whatever reason I can't in the first trimester maintain an active lifestyle, try to make that effort in the second trimester and just go for walks and all that good stuff. Okay, so then the next thing is, in the third trimester, I experienced so much discomfort, and this is something that people share often. It doesn't hit you until you're in it, So for me, these are some of the things I went through. I had severe allergies to the point where I could not breathe when I would go to sleep at night. And when you're pregnant, you really can't take a whole lot of medicines. And some people, have a personal preference of not taking anything at all. So it was very hard to find something that worked for me. I did ask the doctor to recommend some allergy medication, but it really didn't taken effect. I mean, I just could not sleep. And it wasn't just the allergies. I had severe back pain from, the baby belly, but also the additional weight gain. And my feet hurt really bad. Even actually to this day, my baby is 9 months old, and every time I get up from sitting for an extended period of time, or laying down, or when I wake up in the morning, when I first get up, my feet hurt the same exact way that they hurt when I was in my 3rd trimester. So I know my feet have suffered some serious damage. I probably need to get physical therapy, to be honest. Now that my baby's bigger and I'm a little more comfortable in leaving him alone, I might start doing that soon, but I don't know. Another thing that I experienced within number 4 reference, 3rd trimester stuff, was Charlie horses. I would get Charlie horses all the time, even though I would drink plenty of water, because I always thought that Charlie horses were related either to like potassium or water consumption. So those are the things that people would tell me. So I made sure that I was eating bananas and taking my prenatal vitamin and all that good stuff. But I just suffered from crazy Charlie horses. I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming in pain. And I remember my husband would freak out and be like, is it time? Is it time? Did your water break? What happened? What's going on? And it was just the Charlie horses. And then in addition to all that, you just get a lot of aches and pains throughout your body because of all the changes and the weight and all that. Okay, number 5, because as I mentioned, I had gained so much weight in my pregnancy, my doctor, my obstetrician recommended that I really make an effort to increase my physical activity. And what ended up happening was I ended up pulling a muscle. And that was very painful. The problem was, where I was going, it was a team of obstetricians. So every time you would go, you would meet with a different doctor. And there was one doctor that I really loved. She was fantastic, just an amazing doctor. And to be honest, the rest of them I didn't really care for as much. And there was one doctor who she just kind of lacked any kind of like empathy or people skills. And she was the one who told me that I was gaining too much weight and that I needed to start doing some more physical activity. And of course, you're pregnant, you already feel self-conscious, you already feel, you're already emotional, right? And so to have the doctor tell you that you're overweight and you're gaining too much weight and that, you need to basically start exercising, I took it to heart. And so I went out for a walk one day and I thought, you know what, let me see if I can try to get a little jog in because, I used to be very physically active. So I thought, okay, I was holding my belly too to make sure that I was good. So I did just a little teeny tiny jog, nothing crazy, nothing too intense. And then I felt, okay, I'm fine, I'm doing okay. And so I just ran sort of normally or jogged normally, not holding on to my belly. Well, let me tell you, that was the biggest mistake of my life because I think it was the following day I had so much pain and I pulled the muscle right above my belly. What is this called? My oblique. I think it was my oblique muscle that I pulled. And so I had the pain from pulling that muscle, and then on top of that, just the weight of the baby pulling on the muscle. It was so excruciating. I had to go to the OB's office. They had to check to make sure that the baby was okay and that there was, nothing other than that. And the baby was okay, thank God. And I was already 37 weeks pregnant. And they had to end up giving me medicine because of the really, really bad pain I was in. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being unbearable pain, and I needed to be hospitalized, I would have said that I was like an 8.5 or a 9. Like, it was very painful. So this is why I mentioned earlier, definitely I need the accountability of someone, in this case my husband. For you it might be a family member or a friend, everyone's different. It's very important, to have them help you. And a lot of my friends, I did notice that they would go on walks with their husbands, but my husband has a very sporadic sort of schedule, and it was hard to find the time together when we could go for walks. But now, since I no longer work as a school counselor and I'm home taking care of my son full time, I know the next time that I'm pregnant, we'll be able to make it work. Okay, number 6. Let me tell you that I lucked out because just a few days before I went into labor, one of my coworkers came back to the school and she was sharing her labor story. And she mentioned that she had back labor. And I had never heard of that before. And which is pretty ironic because my husband and I went to the labor and delivery class together from our, with our OB's office. And I had also been, reading books and on forums and whatnot. And long story short, no one had ever talked about back labor. And she basically described that her contractions were just all in her lower back. And to make a very long story short, that is exactly what happened to me when I went into labor. I will never forget, Wednesday night at around 9 o'clock, I had some really bad back pain. It was much more intense than what I had already been feeling, because when you're in your 3rd trimester, you usually have back pain as it is. But it just was really getting very painful. And Thursday morning, the pain was coming back, but it was coming back even stronger. And as the hours sort of progressed, the pain got to the point that it was taking my breath away. And that was what made me think, contractions, the way they taught us what contractions are, will take your breath away. And when they last for about a minute and are coming every 5 minutes, then you need to go to the hospital. That's what I was taught. So I called the OB's office. I let them know that I thought I was having contractions, but they were in my lower back. They were not, in or around my belly. My belly was not contracting or tightening, which is what everyone says a contraction is. So at first the nurse told me, oh no, just wait till your appointment today at 3 with the doctor. And I told her, are you sure? I mean, the pain is taking my breath away and is coming consistently every 5 minutes. And I think that had been happening already for 30 minutes to an hour. So she said, okay, just go ahead and go to triage to get checked out. By the time I ended up at triage, I was already, I believe, 4 centimeters dilated. So they said, you're staying, you're in labor, and thank God my friend told me about back labor. Number 7, I did decide on having an epidural. It's just what I knew what was gonna work for me. And so something that happened to me was the epidural only took effect on half of my body. So that meant on one half of my body, I didn't feel any pain or discomfort, but on the other half, I felt the contractions full force, and it was very, very painful. More painful than the pulled muscle, that's for sure. And I have a very, very low tolerance for pain. So I was basically about to cry, about to sob, like I could barely breathe. I thought I was gonna pass out. The pain was just so bad that my OB called the anesthesiologist in again to go ahead and give me the epidural again. And so what they did was they administered that again, and when I laid back down, I had to lay sort of over on the side where the medicine didn't take effect, so it would kind of travel and make its way to that side. And it worked, thank God. It worked. But unfortunately, because I had 2 epidurals, I kind of went completely numb, so I could not really feel anything, which is not good. The doctor said, we want you to be able to feel pressure, a very slight sort of cramping. We don't want you to be completely numb, because then it will be hard for you to gauge when you have to push. But it all worked out fine in the end, because the nurse was looking at the monitor and she was able to see when I was contracting, and then I would just push and everything worked out. Number 8, one of the things that my husband and I both said while we were in the labor and delivery room was that it felt very surreal, and the experience didn't sort of feel how we expected it to be in a way. It wasn't as intense. It was more sort of laid back than I thought it was, than I thought it would be, I should say. Because literally in the room, I just wanted my husband there. I personally did not want any other family members. So my husband was there, the OB was there, and the nurse. And I remember just sitting on the bed. My husband was standing next to me. My legs were propped up. My husband was holding one. The nurse was holding the other. And the OB was just sitting on the bed, just relaxed, checking the progress of the baby. And we had to wait, for the contractions. So when the contractions were, still 3-4 minutes apart, it was very laid back. And it wasn't until I believe the baby was crowning and really about to come out that all the medical team really comes in to, take the baby and weigh them and check them and do that whole thing. Kind of what you see in the movies is not what you experience in real life, which I felt was a good thing because it wasn't for me as intense or as scary or as dramatic as I thought it was going to be. Number 9, something that I did not like about what my OB did was, actually I forgot to mention that the OB that ended up being on call the day that I went into labor was the doctor that I actually liked. So I felt so fortunate and so blessed that it was her that was coming. And I was very, very happy with her, and the nurse that was there was absolutely amazing. But I will have to say something that I learned that I will share with my next OB would be to not yank at my cord to make the placenta come out. That's what the doctor did, and she didn't tell me that's why she was doing it, but I could tell that's why she was doing it, because why else would she be yanking at the cord? And by that time, believe it or not, my epi had completely worn off, and I'm guessing completely worn off. I could already, feel a lot. I was exhausted. I pushed for 2 hours, which really is not a lot compared to how long some people push for. But after 2 hours of pushing, you are exhausted. So 2 hours of pushing, the epi's completely worn off. You're kind of overwhelmed and emotional and that whole thing. And then to add to all that, the doctor is yanking at the cord, and when they yank at the cord, they're tugging sort of at the placenta, and it hurts like a really, really, really bad cramp. And so I really didn't like that. So I will definitely tell my next OB to not yank at my placenta. It will come out, I'm sure, on its own in maybe just a handful of minutes. So patience is a virtue, right? Number 10 is kind of in line with what I just shared. Your OB or your doctor can really make or break the experience for you. And so I really recommend that you take to heart maybe some of the things that people have told you, reference doing some research and making sure that you have a good doctor and a good situation. If you're planning on delivering in a hospital and not using a midwife or a doula, just interview whoever it is you're going to work with to make sure that you have chemistry with that person, that you like that person, and that they're going to honor and respect what it is that you want for you and your baby. And at the end of the day, that you trust that they really have your best interest in mind, because sometimes things can change. Things don't always go according to how we plan them. I just really recommend that you make sure you have a wonderful OB that you're very, very happy with, or doula or midwife, whatever it may be. I will be looking for another OB practice. Number 11, you will be super sore down there for quite some time. It could be days, it could be weeks. I know every person's situation is different depending on whether you tore or whether you have an episiotomy, where they cut to make sure that the baby doesn't tear you too much as the baby's coming out. So it depends. I had a tear. The doctor didn't cut me. I had a 2nd-degree tear, and so it took several weeks for that to really heal. And it was kind of frustrating because you want to feel good already so you can take care of your baby, but it can take time. And like I said, everyone's situation is different, but it took me a few weeks to feel better in terms of the soreness down there. And I have a 2-story house, and we don't have a bedroom on the 1st floor. So the first night when we got back from the hospital, I had to sleep on the couch downstairs. So if you have a 2-story house, Something to kind of think about and make plans and figure out how you might have to possibly deal with going up and down the stairs or staying on the first floor until you feel better. Just something to think about. Okay, and we're at the last one. Number 12 is probably the hardest one for me to talk about just because it was very overwhelming to deal with. Because I had spent the whole day kind of sort of in labor, my contractions I think started at around 9 o'clock, and then at around 11 is when I went over to the hospital. So, and I don't remember if I had breakfast. If I did, it might have been something really light. So while you're in labor and delivery, you're not allowed to eat anything. So between that and also really not drinking any water, I was really dehydrated. And remember how I told you just a second ago that I was really sore from the tearing down there. So adding all those things up, I had a hard time going to the bathroom. And when I finally did, I had a tear in that area, the number 2 area. I developed what is called a fissure. And it's basically a little teeny tiny tear. I mean, it's the size of a paper cut, if that. But it is so incredibly painful and uncomfortable, and it can take a very, very, very long time to heal depending on how you treat it. The doctor recommended that I do sitz baths, which is basically they give you sort of a plastic thing that goes in the toilet. You put warm water in there and Epsom salt, and you sit in there for a little while, and it helps everything heal, from the tear where the baby came out of to the tear that you have in the back. They might recommend using the witch hazel wipes to help heal that area, but none of that really worked for me. The pain just got worse and worse where the fissure was, and I think I actually ended up having two fissures, and it took about 6 months for it to heal. And every single day when I would have to go number 2, the pain that I would feel was just excruciating. I would not wish that pain on my worst enemy. It gets to a point where you feel even depressed because you know every day when you have to go to the bathroom, you're going to endure a crazy amount of pain. It took a while to get the proper medication that I needed that would help relax the muscle and then allow the cut to heal. Because first I had to go to the OB, tell her what happened. She checked it. She actually called a proctologist, I guess, and asked what medication she should prescribe to me. She prescribed to me whatever, I don't remember the name, whatever medication it was. It did not work. She told me to wait 2 to 3 weeks at the very least to see if it would take effect. 2 to 3 weeks of pain every single day, every time you go to the bathroom to do number 2 is inhumane. There's no need to go through that much pain. If after 1 or 2 days that medicine doesn't work, I don't understand why they can't just give you the next one. There's 2 topical sort of ointments that you can put in that area that help. So the first one did not work for me at all whatsoever. The second one, when I finally got it a couple months later, it worked. And it was like a miracle. I mean, as soon as I put it on, I was fine. And I thank God for that because that was really, really hard. So anyway, that's it. I know that there's a lot more that I could talk about. There's so many things that could happen that maybe didn't happen to me, but this is just from sort of my experience, the things that happened that I just thought, hey, you know, these are the things that no one's ever really told me about, or not too many people talk about. So I thought that maybe putting a video up like this would be really helpful for some of you out there. And if you found this information useful, please give me a thumbs up. That just lets me know that you enjoyed the video. And if you're interested in subscribing, please click the link and subscribe. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're pregnant, I'm wishing you the best, sending you all the prayers in the world to have a safe pregnancy, labor, delivery, and recovery, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!